Support comes from BECU, a member-owned credit union putting people over profit, offering financial services and support to the community with access to local financial centers, over 30,000 ATMs, and online resources at becu.org. Federally insured by NCUA.
Hey, good morning. It's Patricia Murphy. It's Monday. This is Seattle Now. The pandemic has fueled the market for houseplants. And trust me, there's something for everyone out there. In a minute, Paige Browning will give us a look inside the growing hobby and, for some, obsession. But first, let's get you caught up. Seattle's City Council has to decide what to do with $15 million in unspent salaries from the police department today. One proposal would let the department hold on to most of it to spend on overtime and hiring bonuses to address a staffing shortage. Another would return less money to SPD and send millions to nonprofits working on alternatives to policing. Look for a decision from the council by this afternoon. Another giant hornet nest bit the dust in Whatcom County over the weekend. That's number 2, if you're counting. The State Department of Agriculture says the nest in northern Whatcom County was about half the size of the one they destroyed last month, and there are still more. They've also located a third nest, which they'll be destroying this week. The non-native hornets can wipe out an entire honeybee hive in just hours. And in sports, the Seahawks are off to a good start. Russell Wilson threw 4 touchdowns to beat the Colts 28-16. They'll host the Tennessee Titans this weekend at Lumen Field. Not so good for the Huskies, who lost to Michigan 31-10 on Saturday. Seattle Times says the last time the Dogs started 0-2 was in 2008, when they didn't win a single game. They'll try to shake that comparison off against Arkansas State at Montlake this weekend. And the Mariners are still chasing a wild card spot. Could happen. A big 3-game series against the Red Sox starts tonight at T-Mobile Park.
Right, like a little icy blue almost in there as well. And then down here we've got the Dischidia oeantha, and then the variegated African violet.
I'm getting a look around at the Peace, Love, and Happiness Club in Fremont with plant tender Nathan Wilkinson.
And then one of the super popular ones is down here. You can see after our weekend we're wiped out of all of them. This is the Tradescantia Nanook.
Business has been booming for plant stores throughout the pandemic. While office workers have been swapping plants for coworkers, nurseries and specialty shops have been struggling to keep up with demand.
Business just continues to grow constantly in the past year and a half or so, since COVID especially. That's when we kind of made our big transition over to plants.
We started with just kokedama and some succulents.
Neil Silverman is the owner of the store and has seen business transform. Pre-COVID, the shop carried clothes, accessories, and a few plants.
But I was watching the numbers, and I'm because I just want my company to do well, So we started bringing in more and more and more plants, and more and more and more plants. And then when COVID hit and we shut down, we were still selling. And my store sales from the previous month, with all 85 different categories, the next month I had the same dollars, but from plants, collector plants, planters, and plant supplies.
This was not unique to Neil's business. According to an industry report from Garden Center magazine, more than 60% of garden centers saw an increase in houseplant sales in 2020, and that upward trend is expected to continue this year. There are multiple reasons for this uptick. The houseplant industry was already growing in recent years, with young people 18 to 34 being the average consumer. Add in all of the time at home during the pandemic when people looked for ways to brighten up their spaces. But beyond that, caring for a living plant is something very healing and beneficial for many. We sat down with Seattle plant collectors Ben Crowther and Kara Blackwell. Ben says he values the hands-on work he does, cultivating his indoor garden of around 150 plants.
I work in tech, so I spend a lot of my day staring at computer screens and doing work that I never see the direct result of. When I tend to my plants, that's real, that's immediate. You get that gratification of seeing something grow and flourish in your care. And I'll be honest, it's not always easy. They teach you patience, they teach you humility. You need to take a step back and understand this plant is specialized to grow in the forests of Borneo, and you're trying to keep 150 alive in your Seattle north-facing apartment through winter.
Yes.
So it's going to teach you some humility. But, you know, during the pandemic, when we're spending our time at home, when we're looking for new ways to fill our time, getting to nerd out about plants and adopt this new interest and learn how to identify them and care for them. And you want something to spend your time. Video games get boring after a while. I want to go care for my Pothos and figure out how to make it happy and bring it back from the dead.
And Kara Blackwell says taking care of her collection of about 300 plants is something that gives back to her.
One thing that plants really help me with, and I've come to learn, is mental health. It can seem probably overwhelming to someone who has anxiety, but for my anxiety and depression, I find it very rewarding. There's a constant positive feedback loop with my plants. I'm nurturing them. I'm giving myself that outlet to really nurture something I care about, and watching it grow, or, you know, maybe bringing it back from almost dead and seeing like the impact that you have when you're giving like love and attention and nurturing something. It really gave back to me in that way, which I found really important especially during the pandemic. But my husband will say that he gets a little jealous of all the time I spend nurturing my plants.
While some people would say that caring for houseplants is a solitary activity, plant collectors find each other to discuss the latest addition to their plant family or trade advice.
I help admin a Facebook group called Pothos Love. It's got about 52,000 members. It's a little less involved in the Seattle-specific community. We have some really great leaders here, and I think as we get back to being able to see each other in person, people are organizing in-person plant swaps and meetups. People are talking about doing tours of their homes and saying, come see my collection.
Please bring me when you do it.
They can be like living museums, literally. So I'm looking forward to getting more opportunities to connect with all these folks I've been talking with for a year or 2 years and getting to meet them.
While Kara really thrives on the in-person connections she makes through her interest in plants, she says the online community is a great place to go for help with a struggling plant.
It's a good place to ask beginner questions, watering questions, just for advice from people who have a lot of plants. That's what I see happening a lot on like the Seattle social media side of the community. And then in person, for me, that's my favorite, to actually meet people like Ben coming in here and talking to them about their passion and connecting the Instagram account with the person. Because I realized I didn't think I knew Ben, but actually through Instagram I did. I had been following your account. It was when you mentioned the Pothos Love that really connected it for me. But yeah, a lot of it has been meeting people through the internet that I then meet in person. And that's really where I make my biggest connections.
Ben and Kara both expressed that a shared love for plants goes a long way. People in the Seattle plant community will make the extra effort to help a fellow leaf lover.
Even during the pandemic, when we can't see each other in person, there are countless stories of folks trying to buy plants that they can't get to. It's in a city too far away, or it needs to be picked up that night and they have to take care of their kids. People they've never met will jump in the comment section and say, you know what, I'm going to Woodinville tonight. I live there. Let me pick up that plant for you.
Oh my gosh.
And let me bring it to your door so you can have your dream plant.
Wow.
One member was struggling with some deep anxiety and depression, and they felt they needed to get rid of their whole collection. And people were stepping up that they had never met, saying, let me care for your plants until you're back in a space where you can care for them again.
Wow.
I will hold on to them, and when you're ready, you let me know, and they'll be ready to come back home with you.
Part of the attachment to plants is that they are part of your home, something that you spend a lot of waking time with. We asked Kara and Ben for their recommendations on easy-to-care-for plants.
My top 3, I started with a snake plant.
Yep.
I think it's a really easy one to start with. You almost like hardly ever have to water it. It's hard to kill. It thrives in a bright indirect light, but it can stay alive and just hang out with you in almost any type of lighting.
They say it thrives on neglect.
Yes.
So if that's you, a snake plant is the right choice.
Right.
Okay.
Another one that thrives on neglect is the ZZ plant. And what's fun now is the ZZ plant has always been a looker. It's got shiny leaves, thick stems, looks so pretty and really cool. But now there's other varieties that you can get as well, like the Raven ZZ, which is more of a black. They have variegated ZZs, which are like a lighter green and yellowish, kind of like a creamy yellow.
Looks like someone painted with watercolors with shades of yellow and white on these green leaves. It looks like art.
And they grow fast and, again, thrive on neglect. And my last pick, which I think is just really fun because my husband got me one. It was one of my very first plants as well, was just a coffee tree plant, just like a little coffee tree.
A coffee tree.
They are so easy to care for. Plus, you're in Seattle, so it's kind of a nod at that. And it's super easy to care for, doesn't need a ton of light, and you can bonsai it.
I have to say a golden pothos. Pothos are easy to care for. You can water them every week or two. They do great in varying light levels. They're no fuss. They're easy plants. They're easy to find. They're cheap. They grow in office buildings in just fluorescent light. They grow in windows. And they're gorgeous plants.
Paige Browning taking us inside Seattle's houseplant boom. Hey, be sure to follow us on Instagram if you don't already. We're at Seattle Now Pod. Thanks for listening. Jenny Cecil Moore produced today's show. Our production team is Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, Clare McGrane, Diana Opong, and Jason Pagano. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tomorrow.